all 9 Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee calling for Congressman Adam Schiff to resign as chairman of the committee in the wake of the Mueller report. They accused the California Democrat of misleading the public by citing evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, even after the report cleared the president of such a charge. Joining me right now is Fox News contributor Trey Gowdy. He is a former Republican congressman from South Carolina, and he is the former chairman of the House Oversight Committee. He is also a former federal prosecutor. And Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Well, assess that. I mean, have you ever seen anything like that? 9 Republicans are asking the chairman to step down. What is your reaction to Adam Schiff's behavior?
Never seen that before. We had a lot of bad days the 8 years I was in Congress, but we never voted to remove or ask a chairperson to step down. Adam is a deeply partisan person. He did everything he could to make sure that Hillary Clinton became the next president, and he's done everything he could since he failed at that to keep a cloud over the Trump presidency. So the folks on the House Intelligence Committee on the Republican side, Maria, are not members of the crazy caucus. They're not bomb throwers. It's Elise Stefanik. It's Will Hurd, who was a CIA employee. It's Johnny Ratcliffe, who was a terrorism prosecutor. It's not part of the crazy caucus. These are reasonable Republicans, all of whom unanimously said, Adam, we've lost confidence in your ability to lead. And I think the next thing that's going to happen is the different intelligence communities, the different intelligence entities are going to say, you know what, Chairman Schiff, if you don't believe the information we provide to you, if you prejudge the outcome of investigations, if you have the President of the United States not just indicted but in jail, and you continue to leak like a screen door on a submarine, we're going to quit giving you information. That's when Pelosi will replace Adam Schiff with someone like Jim Himes, who's every bit as progressive. He's just a lot smarter and a lot more reasonable.
Well, you make a lot of good points, because here's a guy who's running around with his title and spewing out things that are actually coloring people's knowledge of what actually went down. You questioned John Brennan. Same story here. He's a former director of the CIA. So when you hear that title, you see that resume, you stop and you listen. And yet it was back in May of 2017 when you poked holes in his idea that the president had committed treason. He used that word on CNN many times. Here's that exchange between you and Brennan last year.
It's a really simple question. Did evidence exist of collusion, coordination, conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russian state actors at the time you learned of 2016 efforts?
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign that I was concerned about because of known Russian efforts to suborn such individuals. And it raised questions in my mind, again, whether or not the Russians were able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. I don't know whether or not such collusion, and that's your term, such collusion existed. I don't know. But I know that there was a sufficient basis of information and intelligence that required further investigation by the Bureau to determine whether or not U.S. persons were actively conspiring, colluding with Russian officials.
Sufficient basis? And let me correct myself. That was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you poked holes in this narrative. How did this happen, Congressman? So how do you launch a major investigation into a candidate who's running for president based on no predicate?
Well, let me first note, Maria, that was a Republican asking a question about collusion, because you would never know that if you read the Washington Post and the New York Times. They wanted you to believe that Republicans didn't care about collusion. That was a Republican on national television asking about collusion. It began because of a guy named Peter Strzok, with his historic animus towards Trump in July of 2016, launching a counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign. This is about 10 days before he talked about an insurance policy. It was after he said Clinton should win $100 million to nothing. It was after he said Trump would be destabilizing for our country. It was just before he said he had no interest in being part of the special counsel unless it led to impeachment. That's the guy who started the counterintelligence investigation into President Trump. But that's the same investigation that a lot of my Republican colleagues now want you to read the report. It was a flawed ab initio from its inception investigation, and now some of my Republican colleagues want you to read a report on a flawed ab initio investigation.
Trey, you said a minute ago this was based on a faulty investigation from the start. What about the AG releasing the full Mueller report? Where are you on that?
Maria, I bifurcate the investigation and therefore the report. Part of it is what did Russia do in 2016? I am all for my fellow citizens understanding what Russia tried to do to this country. I think it'll be unifying. The other part of the equation is with whom, if anyone, did they do it? And Mueller, Adam and Swalwell and Beto, they all talk about evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what it takes to convict. Mueller didn't even find the lowest level of evidence that anyone in the Trump campaign did it with Russia. There's not even probable cause. So I realize the populist thing to do is say release it all, which, by the way, is against the law. You can't release it all. Let's assume you can just release what you can that's not classified. We are now in the uncharted territory of releasing reports on people for whom there is not even the lowest level of evidentiary standard, not even probable cause. And once you begin to go down that path where you're going to issue reports and do press conferences on people who are not indicted, for whom there's no evidence they committed a crime, then we're in a brand new day politically when the department can do oppo research on a campaign and then under the guise of a report release it but never charge them. I hope we never get to that point, and that's why I'm in a very small minority that doesn't think that part of the report should be made public. I realize I'm in the minority, but I'm not a populist.
Yeah, I noticed that John Ratcliffe took a little walk when the vote came, so he also agrees don't release it because it's not right, and for all the reasons you just mentioned. Look, as I think about this, I feel like this whole thing started by the Clinton machine. Hillary Clinton wanted dirt on Donald Trump. She paid for the dossier. They protected her for her own investigation. It's just extraordinary where we are as we look back. Congressman, it is good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Attorney General William Barr releasing a 4-page summary of Robert Mueller's findings and setting the stage for the next political battle in Washington. A growing debate now playing out on when exactly lawmakers and the American public will see the full Mueller report. Joining me now is Trey Gowdy, former chairman of the House Oversight Committee and a Fox News contributor. So there has been this debate about how could somebody like Bill Barr actually read a 300-page document and summarize it in 48 hours. You tell me, you're a lawyer. That's possible, right?
It's more than possible. I mean, he's actually a smart lawyer. I'm not. I probably could read 300 pages in a weekend, but Bill Barr definitely can. And, it's not like you're summarizing something that's really complicated. Do you have sufficient evidence upon which to charge people with conspiracy, collusion, coordination, whatever you want to call it? And then the other summary, which people oftentimes forget about, what did Russia do to this country in 2016? He summarized it. I'm quite certain he read it. He's a really, really smart guy, which is something that should give all of us confidence. 300 pages is not that much.
Do you? I understand some Democrats' point that if the shoe were on the other foot, right, would you, when you were back on the committee, would you have accepted a 4-page summary from Eric Holder, for example, without further information? And you would probably demand all of the report as well?
I would try, but I would also understand, as I did, when Eric Holder and James Cole, his DAG, wouldn't even answer questions. I mean, keep in mind, Dana, the Department of Justice speaks in indictments. They don't write biographies. They don't write reports on people. They don't do oppo research. They issue indictments. So if I were to ask Eric Holder or DAG James Cole, why didn't you indict this person? They wouldn't answer the question. They don't have to answer it.
It's a great point. Also yesterday, the House Republicans on the Intelligence Committee banded together and they said that Adam Schiff, the chairman of the Intel Committee on the Democratic side, that he should resign. Here's a response from Congressman Ro Khanna. Listen to this.
Adam Schiff shouldn't resign. Look, we have a separation of powers. That's part of the Constitution. You have strong oversight. And the president who can stand up to Xi Jinping can take Congress's oversight or a robust press. So let's move on. Let's figure out things we can come together on. We know the Russians interfered. Put aside President Trump. I was talking to Kevin McCarthy. I said, how do we prevent further interference?
What do you make of the Republicans asking Adam Schiff to resign?
Well, Dana, this you know, it's hard to get on the House Intelligence Committee, at least on the Republican side. Paul and Kevin don't pick members of the bomb-throwing caucus or the crazy caucus. I mean, you've got Elise Stefanik, who's a national security expert, Mike Conaway, former chairman of ethics, Will Hurd, who was a CIA employee, yep. Johnny Radcliffe, a U.S. attorney, terrorism expert. I mean, these are not members of the bomb-throwing caucus. And for them to say, Adam Schiff, we have lost confidence in your leadership, I'll tell you, I think what's going to happen next, Dana, is the intelligence community is going to say, you know what, Adam, you disregard the information that you're provided. You prejudge the outcome of investigations. You have the president not just indicted, but in jail. We're going to stop sharing information with you. If you are the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and you can't act in a reasonable way, we're going to stop sharing information with you, in which case Pelosi will have no choice but to replace Schiff. And look, the next in line is Jim Himes, who's every bit as progressive. He's just a lot more reasonable than Adam Schiff
maybe responsible with information. I have one last quick question for you. There was this text message that was revealed from Page, of course, remember Lisa Page, to McCabe on the 12th of December of 2016, saying, by the way, DNI James Clapper told Pete that he, Clapper, was meeting with the CIA director and his deputy for dinner tonight. Just FYI, basically, for your situational awareness. And McCabe says, okay. Thoughts on that? We've been waiting to find out what it was, this insurance policy that they were talking about.
Yeah, we actually looked into that, Dana. I think it's really important. That was December of 2016, right?
Yes. Yes.
Which is exactly when the intelligence community was drafting their assessment. Remember, they released an assessment of what happened in 2016, and Brennan insisted that the dossier material be included in the assessment. Therefore, when it's leaked, the public has information about the dossier in great detail. So we looked into that meeting. I don't think we found anything untoward with that dinner. But Brennan was an active participant in disseminating this dossier information in the fall of 2016 to put a cloud over the president before he ever became president.
Right. Trey Gowdy, it's a pleasure to have you as a Fox News contributor. We appreciate you coming on today. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.